the email flashed on my screen. Your raise is lost in legal. And I knew right then, this wasn't just about money. I was 34, a contracts and IP analyst at Zephyr Tech, a company built on the promise of innovation but drowning in bureaucracy. I had spent years poring over hundreds of pages of contracts, making sure the company didn't accidentally sell away the rights to its own software. And yet, here I was, once again fighting for something I had earned, only to be dismissed with a sentence as cold and final as the screen before me. My older brothers always had the spotlight, the high-paying jobs, the families, the friends who cheer them on. Meanwhile, I was left to play the role of the invisible one. The quiet, steady worker, always behind the scenes, always just shy of recognition. And I thought I was okay with that. But today, something in me snapped. This wasn't just about the raise anymore. It wasn't even about the money. This was about respect. I closed the email, leaned back in my chair, and stared out of the window. The sky was still bright, but the air felt heavy. A new, darker cloud had settled over me. Something about this felt off. There had to be more. I could feel it, a gut feeling like I'd stepped on a crack in the pavement, knowing the ground might give way beneath me. Zephyr Tech has always been about what's best for the bottom line, I muttered to myself. But what they didn't know was that the bottom line wasn't just some abstract concept. It was about people. It was about me. They had no idea who they were messing with. I took a deep breath, stood up, and started walking toward the legal department. If they wanted to play games, then it was time I played by their rules. The elevator ride to the legal floor felt like it took years. When the doors opened, I almost felt like I was stepping into enemy territory. The quiet hum of the office, the flicker of the fluorescent lights, it was like everything in the building was breathing, watching me. I wasn't alone. Maggie was at her desk, her head buried in a pile of documents. She didn't notice me walk up. "Hey, Maggie," I said, my voice tight. She looked up, startled. "John. What's going on?" "I need your help," I said, leaning in close. "I think something's off with the Vanguard deal." Her brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" I think they're trying to pull something. I've been looking at the numbers, the clauses. There's something we're missing." Maggie's face hardened. "We've been through this before. You know how this goes. If you're right, it's bigger than a missing raise. It could break Zephyr Tech." I nodded slowly. "Exactly. But it's not just the raise anymore. I think it's bigger. I think someone's covering it up, and I need to know who." Her eyes narrowed, almost too knowingly. She was about to say something, but the sound of footsteps interrupted us. "John," a voice called from behind me. It was Greg, the general counsel. He had that cold, dismissive smile on his face, the kind that made my skin crawl. "We need to talk," he said, his voice laced with an unnerving calm. I turned to face him, trying to keep my composure. But inside, my heart was pounding. What the hell did he know? "Now isn't the best time," I said, trying to brush him off. His eyes darkened. "Actually, now is the perfect time. We've been trying to reach you. There's been an issue with your compensation." "An issue?" I echoed, trying to keep my voice steady. "Funny, that's exactly what I've been trying to figure out." Greg's smile didn't fade. He stepped closer, his tone taking on a more intimate, almost threatening air. "I think you've been looking in the wrong places, John. You'd better tread carefully. Some things are best left alone." I swallowed, but I didn't let him see how rattled I was. I couldn't. I'd come this far, and I wasn't going to back down now. As Greg walked away, I could feel my pulse racing. There was something behind his words. I didn't know what yet, but I would find out. The game was on. And I wasn't going to be the one to lose. The elevator doors closed with a soft ding, but the tension in the air lingered. I knew I had crossed the line. The second I stepped out of that elevator on the legal floor, I felt the air shift. It was like I was being watched, and not just by the usual corporate eyes. No, this time, the tension was different. Every corner I turned, every hallway I walked down, I could almost hear the soft click of someone's shoes trailing behind me. I wasn't just the employee in a suit. I was the target. Everything is in the numbers, John, Maggie had told me earlier, trying to calm my nerves, but now, it felt like those numbers were spiraling into something I couldn't control. It wasn't just the raise, it was the hidden mess, the financial game being played behind closed doors. If I was going to unravel this, I had to move fast. I wasn't sure who was on my side anymore. I walked into the legal department, the usual hum of the office louder than usual, and found myself at my desk, staring at my computer screen. But it wasn't the company's daily workload that caught my attention now, it was the files. The old Vanguard contract, buried deep under years of other documents, sat right there. The contract I had personally written. The one that had the clause no one seemed to care about. The clause that had now put me in the crosshairs. I clicked open the file. As the pages loaded, I felt that familiar knot in my stomach. The numbers had been manipulated before I even saw them. A slight reduction in the reported earnings from Vanguard, a minor change to the royalty structure. And buried in the middle, my clause. My percentage. That 0.5% of gross revenue from an $89 million contract. I wasn't going to let this go. Not this time. The phone rang, snapping me out of my thoughts. It was Maggie. John, her voice was low, almost conspiratorial. I've got something. You need to meet me. Now. I didn't hesitate. Where? Downtown, she replied. I'll send you the address. I grabbed my coat and headed for the elevator. Every step felt heavier than the last, the tension in my chest building. The shadows seemed longer, the hallway stretched further. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. As the elevator doors opened, I stepped into the dimly lit lobby. The usual buzz of chatter was gone. The office building felt deserted. Too quiet. I checked my watch, it was already after hours. No one was supposed to be here. I moved quickly, my footsteps echoing off the cold marble floors. But when I reached the door, I hesitated. The sign on the door read Private Office, Authorized Personnel Only. Maggie had told me she'd found something big. But she hadn't mentioned this. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again, a little louder. My heartbeat quickened. Was she still inside? The door swung open slowly, creaking on its hinges. The light inside was dim, casting long shadows across the floor. I stepped in, eyes scanning the room. The desk was clear, but there were papers scattered across the floor, torn open like someone had been searching through them in a hurry. Maggie? I called out. My voice sounded small in the cavernous room. The silence stretched. Then the sound of something moving, footsteps from behind me. I spun around. A figure emerged from the darkness. It was Maggie, but her eyes were wide with panic, her breath shallow. You need to leave. Now. What's going on? I asked, the edge in my voice betraying my growing unease. They know. They know we've been looking. And it's worse than we thought. Before I could ask her what she meant, the door slammed shut behind me. I jumped, spinning toward it. The heavy thud of footsteps echoed outside. Someone was coming. Maggie grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the back door. Get out, John. They've been watching us for weeks. I didn't think they'd catch on this fast, but now we're exposed. My head was spinning. What the hell is going on, Maggie? Her eyes were wide, her voice shaking. It's not just the raise. It's everything. The whole company, the way they've been moving the numbers. The royalties, the contracts, they've been manipulating everything. She paused, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. John, the ones in charge aren't who you think they are. We've been working for the wrong people. I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream at her, but I didn't. The truth hit me like a brick. Suddenly, the office door burst open. A man in a dark suit appeared, his face expressionless, cold. My blood froze. "John Harris," he said in a voice that was too calm. "You're coming with me." I opened my mouth to protest, but Maggie's grip tightened on my arm. "Don't," she whispered. "This is bigger than you think." The man stepped forward. "You have a choice. Come with me quietly, or we make it ugly." I glanced at Maggie, but she was already backing away. Her face twisted in fear. "Get out of here, John. Now. You can't trust anyone here." Before I could react, I felt the man's hand on my shoulder, pushing me forward. Everything happened in a blur, the door shutting behind me, the cold air of the hallway rushing past me, the sharp sound of shoes echoing on the floor. We weren't just playing for a raise anymore. The stakes had been raised. And I was in too deep. The elevator door opened with a soft ding. The sun was already dipping below the skyline as I sat in my car, staring at the empty office building across the street. I hadn't felt this exposed in years. There was no turning back. I knew they were watching, tracking every move I made, and yet I still couldn't shake the feeling that I was one step behind. The stakes had gotten too high, far higher than a missing raise. Maggie's words echoed in my mind. "This isn't just about your compensation, John. It's a cover-up. It's everything." I was going in blind, but at least now I knew what I was fighting for. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about a company built on lies, manipulated numbers, and a future hanging by a thread. Zephyrtech had a secret. One that could bring it crashing down, along with anyone standing too close to the truth. The documents Maggie had handed me earlier were a goldmine, a series of emails, internal memos, and spreadsheets. They were scattered on the passenger seat of my car. I glanced at them, fighting the urge to throw them into the wind and walk away. But that was the thing about truth, it's dangerous. And once it's in your hands, there's no going back. I tossed the stack of papers onto the passenger seat, took a breath, and shoved the door open. The chill in the air hit me immediately, as if the world itself was trying to keep me from uncovering whatever was hidden behind those walls. The office building was darker now, with only a few lights on. A distant hum of elevator gears echoed from above. I stepped inside and the door clicked behind me. The smell of cheap coffee lingered in the air, like desperation and recycled dreams. The quiet hum of the fluorescent lights made my pulse thrum in my ears. Every footstep felt too loud. Too noticeable. I was being watched. I could feel it. "John," a voice snapped from behind me. I froze. "Greg." His figure emerged from the shadows, his face a mask of forced politeness. "I thought I told you we needed to talk." I turned slowly, keeping my face neutral. "I'm not in the mood for small talk, Greg." "Where's Maggie?" His smile tightened. "Maggie's out of the picture. But I'm glad you decided to come. I was starting to think you wouldn't show." A chill ran down my spine. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words caught in my throat. He was enjoying this. "You're playing with fire, John," Greg continued, stepping closer. His voice dropped, becoming more intimate. "You've been digging around where you don't belong. I think you've seen enough." I took a step back, refusing to let him intimidate me. "I've seen more than you think." Greg's eyes darkened. "What exactly are you hoping to find, John? A few missing dollars? Maybe some spreadsheets you don't understand? You're out of your depth." He was trying to scare me, but it wasn't working. The adrenaline was already pulsing through me. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, but I had to keep cool. "No mistakes. I'm not the one in over my head here," I said, keeping my voice steady. "The truth is, Zephyrtech is built on lies. And I'm about to expose every last one of them." Greg laughed, a low, humorless chuckle that made my skin crawl. "You think you're the first to go after the top dogs? You're nothing. Just a pawn in a game you don't even understand. His words hit like a punch to the gut, but I couldn't show it. Don't back down now. I understand more than you think, I shot back, pulling out the stack of papers from my jacket. You've been stealing from me and everyone else. And you thought I wouldn't notice. The change in his face was immediate, his smirk faded, and something darker flickered in his eyes. He stepped closer, his voice turning cold. You don't get it, do you, John? You think this is about money? This is about control. Power. And you don't have it. Before I could react, Greg reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope, tossing it onto the table between us. That's the final offer. Take it. Walk away. Forget this ever happened. I looked at the envelope, my stomach twisting. I didn't need to open it to know what was inside, a bribe, a payoff, an attempt to shut me up. The tension in the room escalated like a live wire. I could feel my pulse pounding in my throat. He was testing me, pushing me to see how far I'd go. Or what? I said, standing tall, the papers still clutched in my hand. You'll have me dealt with? You think I'm scared of you? Greg's smile returned, but it wasn't friendly. You're not scared? You should be. You have no idea what you're really up against. I leaned over the table, my hand shaking slightly as I shoved the envelope back toward him. I'm not afraid of you, Greg. You're not the one I'm worried about. His face twitched. The silence stretched long between us before he finally stepped back. You've made your choice, John, Greg said, his tone colder now. But remember, every action has consequences. The words hung in the air like a threat, one I couldn't ignore. I turned to walk out, my heart pounding with every step. But just as I reached the door, a sudden noise echoed behind me. It wasn't footsteps. It was a soft click. A sound I knew too well. I turned around slowly, my body going cold. The last thing I saw before the lights went out was Greg's smirk, and then everything went black. Cliffhanger, I wasn't sure if I'd ever wake up from this. I woke to the dim, sterile light of an interrogation room, my head pounding like a drumbeat I couldn't escape. The faint hum of the air conditioning did little to calm the tension knotting my stomach. My hands were cuffed to the metal chair, and the feeling of cold steel against my skin made my pulse spike. I was in too deep. The last thing I remembered was Greg's smirk. Then, everything went black. Had they drugged me? Or was it just the shock of being caught in a web I couldn't untangle? The door creaked open. I squinted, adjusting to the light, as a figure stepped inside. Tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp features, David Graves. The CFO. I met his cold gaze, and for a second, it was like I was looking at a different man entirely. Gone was the corporate calm, replaced by something darker. Something calculating. You're awake, he said, his voice casual. Too casual. Did you enjoy your little nap? I didn't answer. I couldn't. My mouth felt dry, and my mind was still piecing together the last few hours. But I wasn't going to let him see how shaken I was. You think you're smart, don't you, John? Graves continued, pacing in front of me. Digging through things you don't understand, trying to expose things you shouldn't. Do you even know what you're up against? I leaned forward, trying to show that I was still in control. I know exactly what I'm up against. You've been stealing from me. And you thought I wouldn't notice. Graves chuckled, the sound cold and bitter. You're right. You wouldn't have noticed. Not until it was too late. You don't even know the game you've been playing in. And now, you've decided to make it your game. The room felt colder with every word. My chest tightened, the air thickening as if something was about to snap. You've been manipulating the numbers. The Vanguard deal, the royalties, you've been hiding it all. David stopped pacing, his gaze never leaving me. You really think Vanguard cares about your little royalty clause? No, John, you've missed the point. This isn't about money. It's about power. Control. The only reason you even have a stake in this company is because we let you. You're a pawn. I clenched my jaw. Not anymore. I'm done being your pawn. Graves' eyes narrowed, and the calm facade dropped for a second. You're making a big mistake. But then again, I expected nothing less from you. You always were the quiet one, always in the background, thinking you were better than the others. But you're not. You will never be. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I'm not afraid of you, Graves. He smiled, though there was no warmth in it. You should be. He stepped closer, and his voice dropped to a whisper. I don't need to explain myself to you. But I will. This company was never about the products we create, or the clients we serve. It's always been about what we control. Vanguard is just one part of the plan. You were just an afterthought. Until now. A cold, sinking feeling settled in my gut. What are you talking about? Graves leaned down, his face inches from mine. You've been making a mess, John. But now, you're going to clean it up. All those documents you've seen? All those hidden numbers? The things you think you've uncovered? They don't matter. You're not going to get away with this. And I'll make sure of it. I felt my heart race. What the hell was he saying? What didn't I know? Then, the door opened again. This time, it was Maggie. She looked like a ghost, her face pale, eyes wide with something I couldn't quite place. She stepped into the room, her gaze flicking nervously between Graves and me. David, she said, her voice shaky. It's not what you think. John, he's onto something. He's right. Graves turned to her, his expression shifting between amusement and fury. Maggie, do you realize the mess you've made? You really think I'm going to let this go? Maggie's hands trembled as she reached into her bag and pulled out a flash drive. She placed it on the table in front of me. This is the backup. Everything. The true numbers, the emails, the original contracts. It's all on here. If you're going to expose this, you need it. I stared at her, the shock reverberating through me. Maggie, what the hell are you doing? She met my gaze, and for the first time, I saw something break in her. I've been protecting you. But I can't do it anymore. If we don't do something now, it's going to be too late. We're already too deep. The tension in the room spiked. Graves slammed his hand onto the table, his face contorted in rage. You think you can outsmart me? You think anyone cares about your pathetic little backup? You've done your part. But you're out. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My mind raced. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. Maggie wasn't just a colleague. She had been playing a different game this whole time. She had been keeping me in the dark. And now, I was standing in the middle of it, no way out. You're both in this together, Graves said coldly, looking from Maggie to me. And it's time for both of you to disappear. The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of his words hanging like a noose. I felt the ground shift beneath me, but I wasn't going down without a fight. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor with a loud screech. You're wrong, I said, voice steady but brimming with defiance. You've underestimated me. Graves raised an eyebrow, his lips curling into a smile that was anything but friendly. Underestimated you? No, John. I've overestimated you. And now you're going to learn what happens when you mess with the wrong people. I turned to Maggie, my mind racing. She was the key to everything. The flash drive was the only thing standing between us and total destruction. I'm not going down for this, I said to her, my voice shaking, but resolved. And neither are you. But Maggie just shook her head. It's too late, John. It's all been set in motion. And you're the one holding the match. As I turned to face Graves, a sudden realization hit me like a lightning strike. This wasn't just about the company anymore. It was about survival. And now, I had to make a choice. Fight or run. The door clicked shut behind me. The city skyline glowed in the distance as I paced in my apartment. My mind wouldn't stop racing, and neither would my pulse. The adrenaline from the last few hours still buzzed in my veins, making every sound too loud, every movement too sharp. My hands were trembling, though I couldn't tell if it was from fear or the thrill of the game I was playing. I hadn't heard from Maggie since that night at the warehouse. Her words haunted me. "It's too late, John. It's all been set in motion." What did she mean by that? What had she been involved in, and why did it feel like she was betraying me? Was she just trying to save herself, or was there something deeper? I couldn't shake the feeling that the answers I needed were right in front of me. If only I could put the pieces together. The weight of the flash drive felt heavy in my pocket. I'd barely had time to process its significance. Maggie had given it to me, but what was I supposed to do with it? Was it the key to exposing everything, or was it just another trap? I had no idea anymore. The game had changed, and now I was playing against forces bigger than I ever imagined. "This is bigger than you think, John," Maggie's voice echoed in my mind. But what if she was wrong? What if I could turn this around? I threw on my jacket and grabbed my keys. The truth was out there, and I wasn't going to let them bury it. I had to get to Vanguard, the company that could bring Zephyrtech to its knees if I had the right leverage. I'd been through their contracts before, but this time I was looking at it through different eyes. I needed answers, and I needed them now. The drive to Vanguard's office felt like it took forever, the streets of San Francisco blurring past. My mind was elsewhere. The clock was ticking. I knew they had the leverage. Graves had told me as much. He was always 3 steps ahead, but what if I could catch him off guard? What if I could get to Vanguard's legal team before they knew what hit them? I parked across the street from their glass tower, the massive building looming over me like a monolith. The sleek, reflective windows seemed to watch me back. The weight of the situation hit me in full force. This was it. If I couldn't get them to listen, I was done. Everything would come crashing down, and I wouldn't be able to stop it. I stepped out of the car, the sound of my boots on the pavement loud in the otherwise quiet street. The air was thick, almost suffocating. I tried to push down the anxiety building in my chest, but it was useless. The closer I got to the front doors, the more I felt like I was walking into a lion's den. The receptionist greeted me with a tight smile, but she didn't ask any questions. She must have been expecting me. I'd left a message earlier that morning, and now I was here, facing the people who could either make or break everything. "Mr. Harris, they're waiting for you," she said, leading me through the sterile, polished hallways. My footsteps echoed as we walked, each step feeling heavier than the last. I was led into a glass-walled conference room, where 2 lawyers from Vanguard's legal department were already seated. They didn't stand up when I entered, and their expressions were unreadable. One of them, a woman in her early 40s, was flipping through a thick stack of papers. The other, a man in his 50s, barely acknowledged me. "We've been expecting you," the woman said, her voice smooth, almost clinical. "Please, sit." I sat, trying to keep my composure, but I could feel the sweat on the back of my neck. I didn't know what I was walking into, but it sure as hell didn't feel like an innocent meeting. She placed a thick file in front of me. I didn't need to look at it to know what it was. This was it, the moment of truth. "We've reviewed the materials you sent us, John," the man said, his voice cold. "We're aware of the discrepancies. And we're also aware of the clause you've uncovered in the original contract." I couldn't suppress a slight smile. At least they weren't dismissing me. Not yet. "But what you don't know," the woman continued, "is that this isn't the first time we've dealt with a situation like this. We've had to clean up Zephyrtech's messes before. And we'll do it again, if necessary." My stomach dropped. Clean up their messes? What did that even mean? Was I just a pawn in another corporate game? "You don't seem surprised, Mr. Harris," the man said, raising an eyebrow. I assume you understand that if this issue goes public, both our companies will suffer. But the truth is, Zephyrtech won't be the only one at risk. My mind raced. What are you saying? The woman leaned forward, folding her hands on the table. We have options. But you're running out of time. If we're going to resolve this, it has to be now. We'll cover up the discrepancy, but we'll need something from you in return. I didn't trust them. I couldn't. But what choice did I have? What do you want? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The man leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. We need you to back off. Walk away from the investigation. Forget about the contract and the royalties. If you do that, we can make sure your raise gets processed. All of it. Plus, a little extra for your trouble. The room felt smaller. A weight settled over me. I was being offered a bribe. A way out, but at what cost? You're asking me to walk away from the truth, I said, my voice tight with disbelief. From what's right? And you think I'll just accept that? The woman's smile was cold. Sometimes, John, the truth doesn't matter. What matters is survival. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. I realized then, I wasn't just up against Zephyrtech anymore. I was up against a system, a machine that wouldn't stop until it got what it wanted. And I had to decide. Fight, or walk away. Cliffhanger, but as I stood there, the answer didn't come. The clock was ticking, and so was my future. The sound of the elevator doors closing echoed through the silence of the high-rise. My fingers dug into the cold steel of the elevator button as I ascended to the penthouse office of Zephyrtech's CEO. The weight of the flash drive in my pocket felt heavier now, as if the truth it held was a live wire ready to snap. I could already feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating, pressing against my chest. I had a choice. I always had a choice. But now, it was no longer about just surviving. It was about doing the right thing, even if the cost was everything. I could let them silence me, sweep everything under the rug, take the payoff, and walk away with my tail between my legs. Or I could stand my ground, expose the rot, and let the chips fall where they may. Sometimes, silence is the loudest scream, someone once said. They were right. I stepped out of the elevator, the hallway stretching ahead of me like an ominous road. At the end stood the door to the CEO's office, the door to everything that had brought me here, the door that would determine whether I lived with a shred of integrity or not. The receptionist, who had always greeted me with a smile, didn't even look up as I entered. She seemed distracted, typing something furiously into her computer. I barely acknowledged her as I passed, my mind consumed by what I was about to face. As I approached the door to the CEO's office, I paused. Was this truly the right moment? Could I really turn everything upside down, risk everything I'd worked for, just to tear away the curtain of lies? I didn't know the answer, but I knew what would happen if I didn't act. I would lose myself. I knocked, and the door swung open. Inside, Brett stood by the window, looking out at the skyline. He turned as he heard the door, a weary smile flickering on his face. John, he greeted, his voice low, almost tired. I didn't expect you today. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. The tension was unbearable now, every moment stretching into an eternity. Sit, he said, motioning toward the chair across from his desk. I did, though my legs felt like they might buckle underneath me. You're here to discuss the Vanguard issue, aren't you? Brett continued, his eyes studying me carefully. I know how much this means to you. The raise, the contract. I can fix it, John. I can make it right. His words were smooth, rehearsed, almost too perfect. But I wasn't buying it anymore. There was no fixing what had been broken. No amount of money could erase the corruption, the deceit that ran through the veins of this company. No, I said, my voice stronger than I expected. This isn't about the raise anymore. It's about everything else. The money you've been hiding, the way you've manipulated the books, the way you've stolen from me and everyone else. Brett's expression shifted, the facade cracking. For a moment, I saw the fear in his eyes, the realization that his empire was crumbling. "You're making a mistake, John," he said, his voice cold now. "You're playing with fire. You have no idea who you're dealing with." I stood, reaching into my pocket for the flash drive. I slammed it onto the desk, the action decisive. "This isn't a mistake. It's the truth. All of it. Everything you've tried to bury, the lies you've been feeding everyone. It's all here." Brett's face flushed, the blood draining from it as he stared at the small drive like it was a ticking time bomb. "You have no idea what you've just done." The door opened behind me, and I spun around. Maggie stepped in, her face pale, her eyes avoiding mine. She hadn't been in my corner after all. "I tried to warn you," she said softly, stepping further into the room. "This wasn't supposed to happen." "What do you mean?" I demanded, my voice rising. You don't get it, John. We've been part of something bigger than you think." I didn't have a choice. I felt the floor shift beneath me. All along, I had thought Maggie was on my side. But now I understood, she wasn't helping me. She was playing the same game as the rest of them, caught in a web she could never escape. "You've been lying to me," I whispered, the hurt settling deep in my chest. Maggie didn't respond. She just stood there, her eyes lowered, her silence louder than any words could be. Brett stood, his hands clenched behind his back. "You've exposed everything, John. But there's no turning back now. You think you're walking away from this? Think again. This is bigger than you." I took a step forward, the weight of everything I had uncovered settling on my shoulders like a heavy cloak. "I'm already walking away, Brett. I'm walking away from all of you. You can't bury the truth anymore. It's already out." I turned and walked out, the door swinging closed behind me with a soft click. The weight lifted from my chest as I stepped into the elevator, the world beyond the glass doors of the building now feeling just a little bit lighter. I had no idea what the future would bring, or if I would ever work again. But I had my integrity. And that was worth more than any paycheck, any contract, or any raise. I didn't look back as the elevator descended. I had already walked away. Cliffhanger: sometimes, survival isn't about winning the game. It's about knowing when to walk away.